Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now. Hi friends, welcome to this episode of Scott Fox After 9, which I think is going to be amazing. I've got some of your favorites coming up on this one. You're going to hear from the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. You're going to hear from former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I got some old school Trudy coming up here. You're going to meet our new Governor General. I've got some committee audio. I've got audio from the Barrie Colts after that outrageous news conference that they did Monday night in Brantford after the Eastern Conference final, and a whole lot more all coming up on this episode. I know that one of the things that a lot of people are thinking about today is gas prices. Gas prices are obnoxious. In Southern Ontario, where I come to you from every single day, a 10-cent increase at midnight. It is now up to $1.95.9 a liter in Southern Ontario. And I know there's places in Canada where it's more than that. I know diesel users are getting screwed right now. Why is gas as expensive as it is? This isn't the first time that we've had $100 a barrel oil. So why is gas so expensive now, whereas it wasn't the last time we had oil at $100 a barrel? I've got a great, concise explanation for you so you can understand. And this is an explanation that you're not seeing much of from the mainstream media. So that's coming up on this episode. Just give me about a minute here, though, before I get to that, because I want to make an impassioned plea. Today is McHappy Day at McDonald's all across Canada. I think by now everybody knows McDonald's once a year on McHappy Day takes a portion of proceeds from all food and drink sales and they donate it to Ronald McDonald House and local charities. Part of the reason I really want to highlight McHappy Day this year is because if you've been listening over the last week, you likely know I've been talking about my good friend Dave Blizzard, my former co-host and good friend. He recently had to stay at Ronald McDonald House because his 3-year-old daughter is undergoing treatment for cancer. And as horrible as that is, that a 3-year-old is undergoing cancer treatment, it would have been a heck of a lot worse for Dave and his family if he had to go back and forth between his place and the children's hospital. So they stayed at Ronald McDonald House. And Ronald McDonald House doesn't charge families for that, by the way. They provide a space for families to stay where they can stay together, and the parents have easy access to the hospital. Most Ronald McDonald houses are very, very close to the hospitals. So this year, I'd really like to help McDonald's raise some money for that amazing facility, Ronald McDonald House. If you're able today, all you have to do is what you would be doing anyway. Eat something. But if you eat something today and you could, try and stop by McDonald's, whether it's nuggets or a Big Mac or a McChicken, a filet of fish, you name it, fries, coffee. You're helping support a great cause when you order at McDonald's today. So that's my plea to you. If you're going to eat, go to McDonald's, support a great cause. It doesn't cost you anything extra than it normally would. You don't have to make a donation. Even just going and placing an order is going to go a long way to help families that definitely need the support of Ronald McDonald House. And I happen to know somebody who needed the support, and I think I speak on his behalf when I say this is a very worthy cause. I hope you have a very McHappy Day. Now let's get to the content on the pod. I'm going to start off with opposition leader Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre is going to explain in a very concise way why gas prices are as expensive as they are now, whereas traditionally they were never this expensive when we had oil at $100 a barrel. Listen up.
The Strait of Hormuz might explain why global oil prices are $100 a barrel, but they were $100 a barrel back in 2014. And at that time, when conservatives were in power, gas prices were 50 cents a liter cheaper. Wow. South of the border, they have the same global oil price of $100 a barrel. And yet, their gas prices are 15% cheaper. The difference is explained by high liberal taxes, including the newly renamed carbon tax. the inflationary spending, and the weak dollar this Prime Minister has caused through his incompetent economic policies. So will he at least have the courage to stand up and announce that he'll get rid of all the taxes for all the year?
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, here's what the head of the International Energy Agency says. Oil and gas may be in short supply, but so are two other commodities, trust and predictability. And he believes this government has all four of those, plus nuclear ambition, plus uranium, plus critical minerals, plus potash. That's how we help the world, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, that was a nonsensical response from the federal energy minister. Nobody is powering their car with nuclear or critical minerals. That's just silly. Let's go back to what Pierre Poilievre said, because he's right. And I think this is something that deserves a little bit more attention. And no, you're not going to get that attention from the mainstream media. They're just not talking about it this way. It's very, very simple. Back in 2012, we had oil selling for $100 a barrel. What that did was it helped inflate the Canadian dollar. It was around that point where the Canadian dollar was on par with the American dollar. Man, those were good times. Do you remember that? When a Canadian dollar was worth as much, if not more, than an American dollar? That seems like a pipe dream now. The Canadian dollar is worth about 73 cents US. Here's the thing. Back then, oil was $100 US a barrel. Right now, oil is $100 US a barrel. Back then, we were paying $1.35 a liter. Right now, we're paying $1.95 a liter. What's the difference? The difference is inflationary spending and taxes. The taxes are the taxes. The Conservatives have been calling on the federal government to get rid of all taxes on gas for the rest of the year until this crisis subsides. And by the way, this crisis is not going to end when the issue in Iran gets resolved, because the world is short over 1 billion barrels of oil because we're not at maximum production right now. So there's going to be a delay in getting prices back down to where they were. Dan McTagg from Canadians for Affordable Energy estimates when we resolve the issue in Iran, it'll be about 2 months before we get back to normal pricing. That's one issue, for sure. The Strait of Hormuz situation, that has spiked the cost of a barrel of oil. But why is gas selling for $1.95 in Southern Ontario today, whereas the last time oil was selling for $100 a barrel, gas was $1.35? Part of it is taxes. The government could take those off. They decided to not go that far. They took off the excise tax, saves us about 10 cents a liter, which isn't nothing, but it doesn't go as far as the Conservatives wanted it to. That, by the way, is only going to be in effect until Labor Day unless they extend it. Taxes are a major factor, but let's also talk about inflationary spending. One of the points that Pierre Poilievre has been trying to make for the last number of years is the consequences of inflationary spending. See, we have $100, let's say. We got $100 here. If the Canadian government decides to print $100 more, then we've got $200 that's still only worth $100. Do you understand what I mean? We didn't invent value. We just printed more dollars. More of them are in the market, but that makes each of the original $100 worth less. So what's happening now is we've got oil at $100 US a barrel. The Americans are paying 15% less. Why is it that we're paying $1.95? It's because our dollar isn't worth as much as it once was. The Canadian dollar has been devalued because we're printing too much money. I hope that makes sense. In my head, it makes sense, but I'm not sure if that's coming across properly as I'm trying to explain it in the pod. Pierre Poilievre has done videos on this, trying to explain the consequences of inflation. Well, it affects us at the gas pump too. And when our dollar isn't worth as much as it used to be, that has a profound impact. Right now, the Canadian dollar is at 73 cents US. With oil prices as high as they are, and Canada being an oil-producing nation, our dollar should be worth at least $1 US. But it's not turning out that way. And again, that is partially because we have printed too much money. What does this government want to do? It wants to print even more money, not the least of which is this new sovereign wealth fund where they're going to have to print about $25 billion. That's going to devalue our dollar even more. We have less purchasing power. That's part of the reason that we're paying so much more for gas now than we used to. The government has got to stop printing money. But what about our expenses? What about our costs, Scott? We need that money. No. Right now, we have a massive deficit. We're spending way more than we're bringing in. The consequence of that is $56 billion a year in interest payments. That's going up to $80 billion a year in interest payments. How can we stop it? We've got to stop borrowing money. Government has got to live within its means. If government brings in $1 million, then they've only got $1 million to spend. And if you cut out all of the things that they waste our money on, we could live off of that $1 million that they bring in. The problem is we've got too much money going to too many special interest groups, phony refugees, and so many other places that Canadians, I think, would not approve of their tax dollars being spent on. Very, very frustrating. But that is going to come up again in the pod because they're still wasting our money. And I'll give you some examples coming up. Before I do, though, sad news. Honda has indefinitely paused their plans to build that big EV battery facility in Alliston, Ontario. Do you remember when Justin Trudeau came out? He was with Chrystia Freeland and Doug Ford. They made this big deal about another EV investment, another company that's investing in Canada. There was a lot of taxpayer subsidies that went to Honda and various other auto manufacturers to try and attract these EV battery facilities. Well, now Honda has said they're not going to go ahead with it. So let's go back. This is Justin Trudeau with Chrystia Freeland 2 years ago, raving about what a great investment of Canadian tax dollars this was.
When we're looking at the Honda EV battery plant, how many jobs directly in the plant will be created, and how much is the government paying for each of those jobs through the tax credits and the deal that is on the table?
There is a debate ongoing in politics right now, and the Conservative Party of Canada would have us not make this investment today. They stood against our Volkswagen investment in St. Thomas, Ontario. They decried the investment that we made with Stellantis in Windsor, and they continue to be against government stepping up to invest in good jobs of the future. It's a legitimate debate, but I think they're wrong. As the world is turning towards new ways of manufacturing cleaner products, cleaner vehicles, changing the way we build things, changing what we build, countries around the world are competing for investments. And we know that an investment today in Honda, as they build new facilities, new plants that are going to employ 1,000 new workers, that's not just creating jobs, great jobs for 1,000 new people around here. That's contributing to an ecosystem that'll involve parts suppliers. It'll involve communities with vibrant art scenes and strong main streets. It'll involve future generations of Canada building the kinds of solutions the world needs.
So first off, no, the Conservatives were not wrong. With hindsight, we can now say Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives were absolutely right. How many tax dollars got wasted on this? Justin Trudeau insisted we had to do it. That was the way the world was going. That's not the way the world is going now. Now we've got Honda pulling out. We've already heard all the stories about Stellantis. What's going on with Volkswagen in St. Thomas? I don't know. But frankly, it seems like a lot of money went to a lot of different places, and it's not being spent on Canadians now. This plant is on a pause indefinitely. No ecosystem of parts suppliers and vibrant main streets and great art scenes. All of it off the table. It was a bad investment. They should have known back then it was a risky investment. They should have had all kinds of checks and balances in place to make sure that not a penny of Canadian tax dollars got squandered. We wasted a lot of time and a lot of money on this, and now it's on hold. Why would we do that? And when are we going to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, how much longer can Canada keep subsidizing these projects that, if we're being honest, we know probably aren't going anywhere? And even if they do, the amount of money that we're kicking in to make these things happen doesn't equal the amount of money that we're going to get back from taxes and from the people working there. It just doesn't math. We're spending more than we're bringing in. That's not a subsidy. That's just throwing money out the door.
Yes, there are politicians who sit back and say, no. We've got to balance the budget at all costs, even if it means not investing in Canadian workers and investing in the future. Well, I think they're wrong. And that's part of the choice Canadians get to make over the coming year and a half when we get to a federal election. Are we a confident country that invests in ourselves, in our workers, in our future? Or do we sit back and say, okay, we'll let Canadians sort themselves out? I know people here in Alliston, but indeed people right across the country, are incredibly proud of Canada being a world leader in battery manufacturing supply chain. We beat out China for the first time anyone's ever passed in front of that, because Canada is making deliberate investments in the future. So I'm incredibly pleased to be able to be here with a progressive conservative like Doug Ford, who understands that investing in workers, investing in manufacturing, investing in the future of Ontario is how you build a strong economy for today and for the coming decades.
It's on pause. It's not happening. We wasted a lot of money. Justin Trudeau gave a great speech. He talked about all those ideals. We could be a powerhouse. We can. I agree with him about that. But we've got to be much, much, much smarter about how we spend our money. And there's got to be mechanisms in place that if we subsidize something and it doesn't happen, we get all of our money back and then some. We've got to start being better with money, my friends. This is crazy. The money that we've spent and wasted. Now what? What about all those promises, those platitudes offered up by Justin Trudeau for the people in Alliston and across the country? We got to figure this out. We've got to let smart people start making these decisions, because frankly, at the time, that all sounded rosy. In fact, there was probably people back then listening to that thinking, oh my God, the Conservatives are maniacs. Justin Trudeau is the way to go. Well, with hindsight, we know the Conservatives were right to oppose that in the form that it was in. It was a totally fair question to ask. How much return on investment are the taxpayers going to get? And here we find out now, again with hindsight, that this was not a worthwhile investment. I want to go back to something that happened just the other day in Toronto, Queen's Park. Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles made these comments about Doug Ford.
But listen, don't worry about it, Doug, because when I'm Premier, I'm going to call a public inquiry into all of this, and we're going to get our hands on all of that. And you know what? Maybe you won't get another mandate because you'll be in prison, Doug. Yeah.
What?
I think he's like,
what?
I think that when we call a public inquiry, which is what it took to get to the bottom of some of the questions around other governments, I think it's a lot of terrible stuff is going to come out. Why is the Premier hiding all of this information from the people of Ontario? Why doesn't he want anybody to know what's on his phone? Because there's dirty dealings around the Greenbelt. The RCMP is investigating him, and I would be very surprised if at the end of this, there might very well be charges laid. Absolutely.
That was a wildly inappropriate thing for the leader of the opposition to say. Saying she's going to call a public inquiry and Doug Ford could go to jail. She had no evidence to produce. You know, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who think because Doug doesn't want to release his cell phone records, he must have done something wrong. That in itself is not proof of a crime, though. If Marit Stiles wants to accuse the Premier of criminal wrongdoing, she should have some evidence. She should bring the receipts. She didn't. There were calls, not just from me, but from many, for Marit Stiles to apologize for those comments that she made to Doug Ford. She refuses to do it. In fact, she doubled down yesterday. She's not apologizing. Premier Ford was asked about that. Here he is.
Well, that Trump-style rhetoric is unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. It's not about me. It's about the rhetoric that happens down here at Queen's Park and outside of Queen's Park. But she doesn't have to apologize, whatever she wants to do. But we aren't going to lower ourselves to the Trump-style rhetoric that she's spewing right now.
Before I go on with Doug Ford, he did say a few other things, and I'll play those for you. It's kind of thick for Doug Ford to be talking about Trump-style comments coming from someone else, because there's many. I don't even think I have to say it. You're all thinking it, right? Doug Ford is just like Donald Trump. There's so many different examples of how he's like Donald Trump. I think it's a little thick of Doug to accuse the NDP of being Trumpish, but he might have a point in this particular instance. A lot of people say Donald Trump is wrong and dangerous because he's going after his political opponents and threatening them with investigations and charges. That's basically what the NDP is doing, and they won't apologize.
Feel like you've contributed to that divisive rhetoric?
Yeah, you know, inside the legislature, words get said, but that one was over the top. And yes, we go back and forth, but she stepped over the line.
You had a really intense rhetoric against Kathleen Wynne when you were running against her in 2018. Some stuff talking about that people from her administration had gone to jail. Why is this different?
Yeah, well, we're in government now and campaigns. You know, you go back and forth, but now we're running government. And I think everyone should get together and collaborate when we can. I understand they're the official opposition. But you can talk about different debates in a different manner.
So do you regret
not Trump
those
style
comments?
No, I'm not into these Trump style rhetoric.
Oh my God, he keeps saying Trump style. Okay, I think maybe Doug should go back and listen to some of his own audio or watch some of his own video, because he has definitely had some Trump tendencies in the way he's acted in a number of different issues over the last number of years. But either way, let's get back to the point. We're paying these people hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to be responsible stewards of our taxpayer dollars, to do the right thing for the taxpayers. And they're acting like complete and total children. Children. Why are we paying these people if they're going to act like that? That was a brutal comment of Marit Stiles to make. Absolutely terrible. This back and forth fighting in an uncivil way, when we don't have a civil discourse, that's when things get ugly. That's when things get polarized. That's when you make the situation dangerous. Everybody's got to dial it back and start acting with just an ounce of professionalism. Can we implement that as a policy? Be professional. They would never say something like that in the private sector. What makes you think it's okay to do it in the public sector? Enough's enough. Adults need to start acting like adults at Queen's Park and in the House of Commons and all over government. These people are getting paid way too much. They're getting away with a ton. The least they can do is talk to each other in a civil way. Here is just a little bit more of Doug Ford. This is 1 minute long.
What's the holdup?
We're focused on one thing, okay? People are concerned about affordability. They're concerned about jobs. That's what we're focused on, because we know the foundation of everything.
They're also concerned about how their taxpayer dollars are being spent, Premier. They're also concerned about how their taxpayer dollars are being spent. So what's the holdup? Why not release these receipts?
They are concerned about making sure they have a secure job, making sure we give them affordability by giving them the tax cuts, the 375,000 small businesses. We're concerned about reducing their taxes by 30% to create more jobs, more opportunities. We're working very, very hard to be competitive around the world, and we're doing it. That's what we're doing.
Premier, you have the power to put this issue to rest by simply releasing, at the stroke of a pen. You can release anything in this government.
Yeah,
why wouldn't you just release those documents right away?
You know something, Colin? We're focusing on the economy. That's what we're doing.
I appreciate
and we're gonna
that.
and we're going to get and we're going to
do two things.
We are going to get that out to you, and then we'll deal with the next issue.
Doug Ford there talking about the receipts from the jet that he bought and then returned. And the government maintains it's a wash. They sold it for what they paid for it. The media wants to see receipts just to make sure that that is true. Doug refused to acknowledge Tina Yazdani's, I think, pretty obvious comment that, yes, sure, people are concerned with affordability and they're concerned about their jobs and all the other things that Doug Ford mentioned. but they're also concerned with how taxpayer dollars are being spent. And I hope that that message has gotten through in Toronto. Now let's go to something else. It was the thing that everyone in Brantford, Ontario was talking about on Tuesday. Monday night, the Barrie Colts from the OHL went into Brantford in Game 7 and completed the comeback. Barrie was down 3-1 in this series, and they fought back and won in Brantford. Well, after the game, the post-game news conference turned into a bit of a mess when the head coach and the captain of the team refused to answer the media's questions. All they would say was, "Nobody cares, work harder." That had a lot of people angry. It left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. That is not when you should be showboating in front of the media or trying to prove a point. Barrie should have been humble in that victory. They should have talked about what adversity they overcame, how great Brantford was in the series. There's certain things that you just do that are a certain etiquette in sports, and Barrie did not do them. Well, on TSN's Overdrive, the head coach of the Barrie Colts, Dylan Schmoskowitz, I think is his name, Schmoskowitz, he was asked about this, and I'm glad he did the interview. He is clearing up where that came from. Listen to this.
The presser last night, it's gotten a lot of attention, a lot of people buzzing about it online. Explain what happened. Like, how did it get to a point where you and your captain stepped up to the podium and answered every question? No one cares, work harder.
The first thing I'll say about that is that that was my lead. Keishon Aitchison took my lead. That's something that I instructed him to do, and the kid was just being a good soldier. So there's nothing about this that has anything to do with Keishon Aitchison. He is an outstanding human being. Everyone thinks he's a great hockey player, which he is, but he's a much, much better person even than a hockey player. The game ends. We come back from a 3-1 deficit in the series. We win a big Game 7. In a hard place to play. And you got to give so much credit to Brantford and the Hyman family and their coach, Jay McKee. Like, they really have constructed a great team and a great environment. It's really tough to play there. We come back in and all year long, it's been about this brotherhood in Barrie. It's brothers, it's a family, and it's daily conversation about the family. And I had this grand idea after the win that I would bring the family in with me to the press conference. And I thought it'd be really cool to have all the guys in there with their hats on, their Eastern Conference Championship hats, and do the presser together, instead of having one guy, but let's have the brothers, let's have the family. The room was small. I was told it wasn't going to work. And instead of being an adult about it and being mature about it and saying, okay, no problem, let's, go in and have a normal press conference as per usual, kind of went the other way with it. And it was a decision that, I regret immediately. It took away from a really, really good game and a really, really good hockey series. So that's that one's on me. That was a big oopsie and something that I'll learn from, and you better believe it won't happen again.
Okay, does that put that to bed? Is everybody satisfied with that response? He owned it. He explained where the issue was and why he decided to react the way he and the team did. He accepted responsibility. He did not apologize, but he did at least offer up the congratulatory comments to the Brantford Bulldogs. Is that enough? Are we good? Or is this going to be an issue? I'd like to think that this is going to end this particular drama, but I'd also like to think that this is also going to be an issue, because I would like to think this is going to spark a nice little rivalry going into next season in the Eastern Conference. Anyway, that was, again, the head coach of the Barrie Colts, Dylan Schmoskowitz. I hope I'm saying that right, but I really don't care because I'm a Kitchener Rangers fan. And tonight is Game 1 of the Best of 7 OHL Championship. Yesterday, a new Governor General was introduced. Governor General, that's... I'm still not 100% sure we need a Governor General. We pay this person a hell of a lot of money. They get a staff, they get expenses, they get all kinds of things. We pay them for life, basically. And I don't understand why the king can't just represent himself in Canada. This isn't like the 1800s where he had to go back and forth on a boat. We can Zoom him anytime we need him. If he needs to sign something, DocuSign. It's really not that hard. People complete legal documents all the time online. I don't know why the king can't do these things himself and why we need to have a king's representative in Canada other than just raw tradition. Okay, I mean, I love tradition. I love our traditions. But when they're that expensive and divisive, I don't know if it really makes sense. And by the way, the new Governor General that was appointed yesterday, Louise Arbour, that's her name. She's got a great resume. She has been a prosecutor at the UN level. She's been a UN envoy. She was a Supreme Court justice. She's led various inquiries in Canada. She is certainly qualified to do the job. But she's 79 years old. We've hired a senior citizen for this. She'll be close to 85 by the time her term ends, if it doesn't get extended. And she's been very outspoken over the years about mass migration and immigration. Here's just a little bit of our new Governor General.
I believe that this puts on us a special obligation to provide for a generous resettlement program aiming both at welcoming refugees and at easing the burden on states who are struggling to live up to their international obligations. And I believe with true international cooperation in place, this is eminently feasible. And we should do it the smart way by ensuring that asylum seekers can travel safely to places of refuge, thereby undercutting the smugglers, and by deploying extraordinary resources to meet this extraordinary challenge.
That was her in 2017. Big fan of mass migration and countries like Canada accepting lots more refugees. Here's another one.
Migration now has a home in the SDGs, in the Sustainable Development Goals, in many aspects, but very specifically under SDG 10, which speaks about reducing inequalities between and within countries. And I think this is very significant, that the United Nations, for the first time in its history, is prepared to talk about migration in a cooperative spirit and very much in the context of the broad development agenda.
I think if you ask most Canadians, they're going to say we want the immigration problem solved. We certainly don't want more people coming here, not right now. This Governor General is very in favor of it. Can she influence government policy? Well, she influenced the government to hire her as the Governor General, so I would assume she has the Prime Minister's ear. I also tend to think that Mark Carney likes that issue because most left-leaning governments are all in on mass migration. We saw it in so many left-leaning countries. We saw it in the UK. We saw it in America when Joe Biden was in charge. We're seeing it in all over Europe, Australia, you name it. And all of those countries are dealing with the consequences now. Here's more of Louise Arbour.
Migrants and host communities both. For this reality to overtake some of the most outrageous misconceptions about migration and migrants, accurate reporting on migration is critical. It requires not only a responsible depiction of facts and events, but also a proper setting of context. Above all, it entails a responsibility not to exacerbate prejudices and tensions with misleading information and biased terminology.
The media, who is very left-leaning themselves, apparently is still not doing a good enough job at convincing people that we need mass migration, that we need more people here. But that's who our new Governor General is. She's advocated for things like this for a very long time. She basically wants open borders. That's a divisive thing, especially when we're going to be having a national unity debate over the next few months. While we're talking about mass migration and immigration, let's go to yesterday in Ottawa. More committee hearings. This was the Committee on Immigration. This is an interesting comment. It is the immigration minister, Lena Diab, talking about how many people in this country really aren't supposed to be in this country.
Minister, it's been 6 weeks since the Auditor General tabled her report. Speaking of the 800 fraudsters that you allowed to enter Canada, how many of them are still in the country as of today?
Thank you, Mr. Reddekopp, for that question. With regards to the 800, what I could tell you is that IRCC's established a process that if any has misrepresented on a document, they are flagged and can be deported.
So I am going to interrupt because we have very limited time. So I guess I understand there's a process. I know that you've got that laid out in your departmental plan. But as of today, in terms of the people, because the process is one thing, but the actual people is another, how many of them are still in the country? Do you know that? I mean, if you don't know, that's fine.
I don't have that information.
Okay. All right. Then do you know how many of those 800 fraudsters made asylum claims?
We do know the numbers that have made asylum claims, but I don't have the number of the 800.
So you have it. Is that something you can provide to the committee then?
So we know that 14% of the total of the 153,000 made asylum claims.
Okay. That's different than the 800 fraudsters, but okay. And as far as the 800 fraudsters that your department didn't investigate, do you know where they are right now?
So again, by the end of the year, the department has an action plan that has been already submitted to the committee. My officials here will talk on that, but there's also a lot of progress that are being done to ensure that we work collaboratively with CBSA a lot more closer.
Right. We've seen the plan, understand it. But so what you're saying is, as of right now, you don't know where those are, and those people are those fraudsters, and it's something that will be done in the future.
She doesn't seem to know a whole heck of a lot, does she? That's crazy. Hey, let's do another one from this same hearing.
The 21,000, roughly 21,420 would represent the percentage of what you've just identified. Do you know how many of those people are staying in the new hotels that the government has just funded?
So there wouldn't be any. We don't have any hotels. The IRCC doesn't run any hotels.
You funded hotels in Ottawa and in Pickering that have been through your housing program. You've $40 million to Ottawa and 22 some odd million in Pickering. Those communities have purchased hotels. Do you know how many of these students that have claimed asylum are living in those hotels?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please go ahead, Mr. Gallivan.
IRCC does provide funding to other orders of government to arrange for housing. There's been an active discussion about how that's used, particularly around the question of using hotels. And so, as per my prior testimony, we're writing into the terms and agreements of the funding that we provide to other orders of government around the question of hotels. So the question's appreciated.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gallivan. I'm sorry, Mr. Davies. That is...
Oh, wow. Sure enough, they ran out of time. That's obstruction. Let's try one more time to find out how much the government is spending on hotels to put up some of these fake refugee claimants.
Minister, you have said to me several times during this committee that that IRCC is no longer paying for hotel rooms. You reiterated that again today. But do you agree that municipalities should be using taxpayers' money to purchase real estate? And isn't that just a backdoor way of sort of a bait and switch to spend taxpayers' money to house refugee claimants?
So I did say that, and that is correct. There was a system in place where hotels had been used for asylums.
But they're still being used, Minister. There is instead
housing.
Of you paying them directly, you're actually giving money to municipalities. Is there a contribution agreement attached to that?
Yes, absolutely.
To that funding? And does it allow them to buy real estate with the taxpayers' money?
There is an agreement. Of course, there's an agreement in place.
And it allows them to buy real estate, taxpayers' dollars to buy real estate to house asylum claimants.
Not for asylum claimants.
Well, who?
Madam Chair,
population.
The population? What population?
I think, Mr. Galvin, you want to come in?
Madam Chair, I have asked the team at IRCC to tell me what instrument needs to be modified to address this question. I would like to know how we write into the terms and conditions of prohibition. So I've asked for that information. I believe conversations were had about not doing it, and now I've asked for the hard rule that would prohibit it.
Okay, so just quickly, I know that when the minister says the population, I'm not sure what you mean by that. But let's move beyond that. You've allowed taxpayers' dollars to be transferred under a contribution agreement to municipalities to buy hotels to house asylum claimants, what I was led to believe. When you sell the building, who gets the proceeds? The tax? Do you get the money back after the municipalities sell the hotels? Or is there interest payable on the assets that municipalities are purchasing? I want to know, do they get the money free after the program is done?
So again, there was housing.
No, I'm talking about the purchase of the real estate. If the municipality decides to sell the real estate, who gets the proceeds?
Again, money was transferred to the municipality for housing costs.
Okay, I'm going to cut this off. For those who don't know, this is how the government is getting around it. They discovered an interesting little thing during COVID where the government would just pay for hotel rooms for people that needed to isolate. And they've kept it going because they brought so many people to this country and there was nowhere for them to go that they're getting put up in hotels. And people got very, very angry when they found out some of these refugee claimants or asylum claimants were staying in nice hotels in Toronto and Niagara Falls. So then the government, once they got caught, realized, okay, we're not going to put them in the big major tourist centers, kind of bury them in smaller cities. And then there were questions asked, well, how much are you spending on rooms to keep these people in hotels? The government got caught again. So to get around it this time, rather than spend money on Toronto and Niagara Falls hotels, rather than put them up in hotels in other places and have to account for the money that they're spending per room per night, now they've decided to start just buying hotels. The question there was simple. If the municipality ever decides to sell that hotel, do they keep the money or does it come back to the Canadian taxpayers who funded the purchase of the hotel in the first place? They are so sneaky. It's crazy. To wrap up this episode, I'm going to put a bow on this immigration topic. I want to take you again to Ottawa. Yesterday, House of Commons, Conservative Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman, she went on a rampage when it comes to immigration, and I think her frustration is something that a lot of Canadians can relate to.
The Liberal immigration minister is out of her depth, and the numbers prove it. 86% of rejected asylum seekers remain in Canada. 25,000 people were admitted without a proper security screening, and nearly 3 million temporary visa holders are nearing expiry with no clear plan in place. And yesterday, the Prime Minister claimed that the system is, quote, under control. But there are no real controls left. The Liberals dismantled them, and the minister has shown no ability to restore order. So with results like these, why is she still in her job?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I will park some of the factual inaccuracies that were included in the member's question, but let me just take a moment to say that I have been proud to work alongside my colleague for Nova Scotia, not just in her current capacity as Minister of Immigration for Canada, but previously when she served as the Immigration Minister in my home province of Nova Scotia. She was uniquely responsible for bringing the healthcare workers that provide care to my neighbours. She was uniquely responsible in helping resettle refugees from Syria when the federal Conservatives wouldn't lift a finger. She is working on a program that may be a difficult problem to solve, but she is restoring integrity to the immigration system, and the personal attacks are cruel, inappropriate, and beneath this House.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
It is that minister who left the immigration minister with the mess that she has to clean up. And he knows that even Liberal MPs who have been passed over for a decade can see that she's out of her depth because of the mess that he left. These are direct quotes from them. She has no idea how to respond. She doesn't make sense. She puts her foot in her mouth.
All of that is true. 86% of rejected asylum seekers are still here, and we're still taking care of them. 86% of the rejected asylum seekers are still in Canada. They got rejected, but they never left. 25,000 people were admitted with zero proper security screening. 25,000 of them. Who are these people? Where are they? What are they doing? What are they up to? Why didn't we screen them? All good questions. There are nearly 3 million people that have temporary visas that are about to expire and still no plan from the immigration department for what they're going to do after that happens. 3 million. When their visa expires, they should leave. Or they should apply for a new visa. We can all agree on that. That's how the system works. That's how you would be treated if you went to another country on a visa. What are we going to do, though? What do you think the Canadian government is going to do? Because I have a feeling, based on history, that this is not going to go the way it should go. Friends, I'm done for the day. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully you have seen that the mainstream media is not giving you the whole story, because a lot of what you heard on this episode of Scott Fox After 9 was certainly not on the news last night. Have yourselves a great one. Happy McHappy Day. Again, grab yourself a Big Mac or some nuggets or a McChicken or something, and you are supporting a great cause today like Ronald McDonald House. I'll catch you right back here in less than 24 hours.